Hey guys, it's Riley here, and today we're going to be doing something outside of my usual DFFOO videos. Today we're going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite characters in the Final Fantasy universe. But before we begin, I want to take this time to personally thank a really close friend of mine in the community, SoulDFFOO, who provided a good portion of today's information, as well as allowed me to use some of his footage to help cover this character in full for you guys. And if you haven't heard of him, I'll leave a link to his channel below. Definitely recommend checking him out if you like to enjoy some more DFFOO content. And with that being said, we're going to be discussing the rise and fall of Final Fantasy XIII's main protagonist, Lightning. So starting from the beginning, Lightning was first released in Arc 1 Chapter 8, alongside her 15 and 35 CP weapons respectively. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I actually wasn't a current player at the time when Lightning was first released. I actually saw the old commercial of these friends in, I think, a coffee shop, where they were discussing who the best character was, be it Cloud, Lightning, or Yuna. And then the commercial cuts to some DFFOO gameplay, basically advertising the game and the release of Lightning. And upon her release, she definitely did not disappoint. Back during the early meta of the game, turn counts weren't even a thing, and the game was so generous. In fact, at the time, you could take a year to beat the stage and still come out on top with the max score of all 9s. Speed, though, was still a major factor. With speedy characters like Lightning and Tidus, they could suffocate a stage where the boss would barely get 2 to 3 turns in before you'd win. And in JP, there was a particular team comp responsible for dominating the early meta, and this team comp was called LitGo. Stands for Lightning, Tidus, and Aiko. Lightning and Tidus were inherently fast, and with Aiko's speed up buff from her S2, you basically played this team during the early meta of the games released in JP, and you instantly win. However, if we take a look at the global side of things, this team comp wasn't as prime as it was in JP, since Global had a specific time traveler by the name of Saz, who was given his 35 CP weapon about 3 to 4 months earlier. Just him alone was enough to shake up the meta, for Global at least, allowing for a specific team comp of literally any DPS plus Saz means congratulations, you beat the game. Fast forward now, and we are at Arc 2 Chapter 1, and this is the EX era where characters are now being released with the debut of their EX weapons. Lightning, of course, crashed down with the debut of her EX weapon, Overture. This gave Lightning a powerful unique buff called Knight of Etro, which raises her max brave and attack while also granting her Thunder enchant. Cause, get it? Lightning has to deal thunder damage, obviously. But it also gave Lightning a rather interesting gimmick. Whenever she broke a target while Knight of Etro was active, Lightning would be granted an additional turn. This additional turn didn't add to your turn count, but did decrease the turn count in summon and as a friend support unit. Which this is when the true shenanigans with Lightning began. During her event in Arc 2 Chapter 1, global players were enjoying Lightning to the absolute fullest. So much so, people would sit down their phones or alt tab from BlueStacks and Lightning basically could handle the co-op stage all by herself. And she had no problem from players reminding you that she could do it, all by herself, without you or the boss taking a single turn. It wasn't always all fun and games though, as Lightning still had one major flaw at this time, which was her S1 ability Spark Strike. This was still a brave only attack, and in the current meta where new DPS were having HP dump after HP dump after more HP dump, Lightning was taken a bit back since there was just more optimal and reliable DPS at the time. And now this brings us to the Cosmos era, where in regular global player privilege DFFOO fashion, everyone was getting an early rework. And I do mean everyone. Thankfully, Lightning was also no exception to this rule. With her early Cosmos era rework, we finally got the Lightning that, to be honest, should have been released back in Arc 1 Chapter 8. Lightning now had stances, which of course, sticking with the theme of Final Fantasy XIII, Lightning was given her Ravager stance and Commando stance. Ravager gave Lightning max brave and speed, while Commando gave Lightning max brave and attack. Each stance had 2 stacks that you can fill up, which if you did, the other stance, be it Commando or Ravager, would go into its plus variant, which gave that skill higher overflow and a stronger brave hit. Most importantly though, Spark Strike was no longer a brave attack only, With now a 4th HP dump, Lightning could compete for that DPS slot in your team comps. Cosmos era though was short-lived, and with that, so too was Lightning. With Chaos now on the rise and EX Plus now in the game, DPSs like Cloud, Squall, Garland, and even RNA are running around. Lightning just couldn't stand up to these monstrous DPS units. Now moving ahead to an extremely momentous day, not just for Lightning, but Final Fantasy XIII as a whole, we get to the Crystal Awakening batch for level 70. That changed Lightning, honestly, forever. She was finally gifted her EX Plus, and she went from tier, nah, to tier damn. Literally overnight. Her EX Plus gave Lightning so much power that she could solo content, and I do mean solo content. I wish I can go over her EX Plus here, but there's just so much to cover. If you want to read it for yourselves though, I'll leave a link to Rem's Dissidia base where you can do so. I will however mention one important part of her EX Plus, and that is her recast gauge on her EX ability. Now starting at 80% full at the start of the fight, meaning all you had to do was use one ability, and boom, you had an EX Plus next turn. Not much to say though about Lightning other than the fact that she was an extremely prominent DPS unit. I mean, you can take Lightning right now into Diabolo's Chaos and solo it. Heck, take her into Alexander Chaos and solo that too while you're at it. I mean, her power was completely undeniable at this point. And for Global and JP, we had content at the time called Far Ends of Dimensions, a place where you can take a team comp and complete extremely challenging boss fights. And Lightning being able to solo a majority of Chaos fights, players once again gravitated to her to help them complete some of the hardest content in the game. Now leaving the global side and going more into the JP side of the game, we have the era of burst and LD weapons. And even though you would think these new weapons a character like Lightning who still had an only EX Plus would fall out, she actually didn't. In fact, she did very well in this era, still being used for her turn manipulation and heavy damage output. Lightning was still at the top of her game, and honestly nothing could really stop her. At least, so we thought. We now get to our first Crystal Awakening batch for level 80, where satisfyingly, Lightning was a part of the first batch. She was now granted her burst weapon and LD weapon, which of course brought Lightning from tier damn to tier
meow meow choco chow.
Seriously though guys, Lightning was amazing before, but now with her LD and burst weapon, she basically helped you beat anything you wanted. And this time in JP, we had a new difficulty called Lufenia. Lightning could actually solo this content as well. I mean, Lightning is just in a league all on her own. But this sadly is when I think the devs started to catch on to our savior, and this is when the true fall of Lightning began. I wish I knew who makes the decisions on the dev team for the Lufenia fights and what the bosses will be immune to, or what element they'll absorb, just so I can...
How shall I do it? Oh, I know. I'll turn him into a flea. A harmless little flea. And then I'll put that flea in a box, and then I'll put that box inside of another box, and then I'll nail that box to myself. And when it arrives, I'll smash it with a hammer.
Sadly, shortly after a couple of Lufenias, Lightning was smacked with the ultimate cuck of all, and that was the dreadful Thunder Absorb. And Lightning's entire kit is thunder thanks to her self-thunder enchant from her EX ability. This unfortunately stops Lightning dead in her tracks. And I mean, her damage goes from mind-blowingly awesome to... I do get it though. The devs want you to use exciting new characters and create amazing new team comps. Right? Seriously though, our favorite character Lightning just couldn't catch a break, and it was just Thunder Absorb after Thunder Absorb. So much so that we as JP players pretty much expect Thunder Absorb to just be a thing on future Lufenia fights. Now, not all Lufenia fights had Thunder Absorb, and there were some that allowed Lightning to make returns here and there, but now it's sadly to the point in JP where Lightning is just there, like as a cool character to have in your roster. Cause odds are, the next Lufenia fight will have Thunder Absorb, and it completely shut her down. And on top of all that, the devs thought it was funny to kick her while she was down, and add immune to Imperil on fights. Like, really? Did we really need to add that? All in all guys, Lightning is actually a really amazing character when she's used right, and she has full utilization of her kit. She does so much, and she's only one unit. It's just sad to see our game constantly shut her down to the point where the game itself phased her out of existence. And with that, guys, I'm actually going to end this video on a question, because I love your opinion on this. Seeing Lightning as she is now in JP, does that make you question your favorite characters and whether or not it's worth investing in them? If so, let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. And now I want to take the time to actually thank you guys for sitting down and joining me in this conversation. Honestly, this video took a while for me to put together, and I'm really happy with the end result, and I hope you are too. And as always, guys, I'll see you next time.